So for today's session, I'm going to warm up with some head-in positions. One of the techniques I use in class is to have a focal point. So we all have a focal point that we look at when we do our handstands. Ideally, that this should stay constant. So if I'm in a handstand, I'm going to look down somewhere between my thumb and index finger. If I draw a straight line between the two, this floor is pretty cool because I can pick a point, I can pick something to look at, and then on my entry, and in the handstand itself, I'm keeping it exactly the same. So I don't change that focal point. Now, to tuck the head or to look up to the ceiling is more of an advanced thing to do. So when you get to like beginner, intermediate, so you can kick up to the wall quite comfortably, you're starting to pull away with heel pulls and starting to spend some time freestanding, I would start to play with the head position. I wouldn't spend too much time on it. I'd just do it as like 5% of your training and have a little play with it. Put it in a couple of sessions per week. Different techniques I use to do. Change the focal point. So I'm going to show this against the wall, and I'm going to show freestanding. So it depends where you are. If you're going to do the wall version, we can do it in different ways. We can pull from the wall and then change the head position using a heel pull, or we can just keep our heels constantly on the wall, try and have the same amount of lean, the same amount of pressure on the wall. But I'll take you through that in a second. So the first thing we want to do is just check where our home position is. So home position is where we normally look in our handstand. So hopefully if you've been training for a while, this is fixed and you don't move it around all the time. So I'm just going to use this one block. Ideally, you'll know where you are. So I'm going to use this first block is going to show me where my fingers are. The second block is going to be my focal point. Where do I look in the handstand? So just find that point. So I kick up into my handstand. I'm not focusing on this one yet. I'm just going to see where do I look in the handstand. Okay, so it's further back. So I'm going to move that further back. So this is my normal focal point in the handstand with my fingers in line with this block. Okay, so now I have that. I'm going to add another block in. So this is going to be my second point to look at. So this is my normal position. This is where my fingers go. This is going to be my second block. So I'm going to have that pretty close. I'm going to kick up, get into that home position. Very important that we find that happy place where we normally hang out. And then I'm going to change the focal point to the other block. See if I can hold the handstand there. Now, one thing to think about here is obviously I can change the focal point by just moving my eyes, or I can change the head position. With this one, we want to change the head position and the eyes at the same time. So we're doing this just to keep it a constant. Now, if I'm going to do the wall version, exactly the same setup. I have the 3 blocks. I have one block where my fingertips are going. I have one where my normal vision is, so I know where that is now, but if you don't, set it up. And then I have that second block. So I have a couple of choices now. I could kick up to the wall. I could heel pull off, change to that second point, see if I can still hold there. If I'm not freestanding yet, I could just focus on having the same amount of weight in the heels against the wall and change the head position. Everything else should stay exactly the same. So I have the 2 positions now to play with. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to see how far away I can take that second block. So I'm going to move it all the way over here now. So home position could be against the wall, could be freestanding. Move to that second block, look at it, try and hold that same position. So now we have 2 distances, and obviously we can change that distance quite a bit. If it gets really far away from us, I actually prefer then to look away. Now when you look away, it's a little bit different because instead of focusing on a thing, you're basically looking into the distance, and it all depends if something's close to you, something's far away. I tend to try not to look at anything when I do that one. And then you could look all the way up towards the toes, but we'll add those 2 variations in a minute. First of all, let's just see how far you can get with this second block, as far away as you can. Okay, so now we know how to play with the distances and just try and hold that same line. So if I'm in a straight handstand, I move my head and look over to that second point. The position ideally should not change. So again, I'm going to set up with the 3 blocks, go through that same process. So, but this time, instead of staying, so I'm going to find that home position, look at the second block, go back to the first block, second block, back to the first block, and see if I can go between the 2 and show control. And ideally, you shouldn't see much change in my position. Now, I could do this in a straddle, in a tuck, in a stag, in any shape, but I'm trying to keep it constant, and the change of head position doesn't affect my line. So that's a good one to do. Definitely video it. For often what can happen when you start to tuck the head, the toes can start to go over. So just try and be aware of that, both on how it feels and then visually. And then what we can do is then do the same thing, get rid of the blocks. So this is the way most people would do it. And we just go to different head positions. We could go further, so I could look away. I could look straight away that direction, and I could look up to the ceiling. So normal position, could look away further. Normal position, look away. Whoops, look away. And I could look up to the toes. And obviously back to the home position. And you could then go between the two. So have a play with that block variation. I'm a real big fan of that, especially when you're first getting used to it and only move very small distances, and really focus on having the focal point instead of like looking away into the distant. And then over time, looking up towards the toes. You will find when you look up to the toes that it pulls you definitely over in that way, and you have to pull back against that. If not, you'll keep falling over. Same thing up against the wall. Remember, you could play around with your basic drills. So either with the blocks or just looking away or looking up towards the toes. So here, I can pull away. So into that heel pull. Now can I do that when I'm looking away and get that same quality? Go back to the wall. Can I get the same when I look up? And go back. So there's some variations for you. Definitely have a go with the block one. I haven't seen that used so much. Let me know if you have any questions, or if there's any videos you want me to make in the future. Thumbs up and subscribe would be appreciated, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys.